The morning sun crept slowly above the horizon, casting a soft golden veil over a long-forgotten country road. The road was cracked and worn, its pavement chipped and bleached by time and seasons. Wild grass poked through the broken concrete, and the air held the scent of dust and silence. This road hadn't felt the press of hurried feet or humming tires in many months, maybe years. But on this particular morning, something moved. A sound barely louder than a breeze. A soft, pitiful whimper. From the brush beside the road, the grass rustled gently, then parted. Emerging slowly was a tiny, trembling form. A puppy. His fur was once golden, now caked in dirt. His ribs visible beneath the patchy coat. His eyes, dark and wide with fear and fatigue, searched the empty road ahead with a kind of desperate hope only a creature on the brink of giving up could understand. One leg, his rear right, dragged awkwardly behind him, swollen and twisted at a wrong angle, clearly broken. His name, though no one knew it yet, was Bruno. He had been born a survivor, the last in a litter of 5, born behind a dilapidated barn on the edge of a dying cornfield. His mother had done her best, licking their tiny heads, cuddling them for warmth under rusted tin sheets. But one day she was gone. Maybe she'd gone to find food and never returned. Maybe she had been hit by a car. Maybe she had been taken. Bruno didn't understand loss, only the gnawing ache of loneliness that followed. The others stopped moving days ago. And Bruno, the smallest and weakest, had waited until his belly growled with a fury he couldn't ignore, and the cold crept into his bones like ice. The injury came the day before. In his desperate search for food, he had climbed a loose pile of metal debris behind the barn, hoping to find scraps left by passing animals. The sheet shifted and he fell. A sharp edge slashed across his leg, and the weight of the metal pinned him until he struggled free, whimpering and limping into the open field. Now that leg throbbed with every breath, dragging behind him like a dead weight, tearing open with each jolt. But something deeper than pain stirred in Bruno. A spark. A whisper. Help. He didn't know what it looked like or where it might be, but his instincts told him it was out there, somewhere beyond the trees, beyond the road, beyond the horizon. He had to find it. So he began to crawl. His front legs bore, the brunt of the effort, paws scraping against gravel, claws cracking and catching on jagged rocks. Every inch was agony. His belly scraped against the road, skin rubbed raw, the bones beneath pressing painfully against the hard surface. Blood smeared the path behind him in tiny, tragic smudges. The morning air carried the scent of distant life, chimney smoke, the faint sound of barking from afar, a rooster crowing, but Bruno was still utterly alone. Time moved like molasses. Minutes felt like hours. Bruno's tongue lolled out, dry and cracked, but still he moved. A car passed once, a red pickup, windows rolled up, music playing. Bruno paused, lifted his head and tried to bark. A sound came out, broken and hoarse, barely a whisper. The driver didn't see him, or if they did, they didn't stop. Dust billowed in the wake of the truck, choking Bruno's breath. He sneezed, coughed, then collapsed in the dirt. He rested there for what could have been minutes or eternity. His breath was shallow. The sky above was turning blue now, clouds drifting lazily. A sparrow landed on the fence nearby, chirped, then flew away. Bruno blinked, his eyes dry, then pulled himself forward again. Every movement was powered by sheer will, by the echo of something warm in his memory. A heartbeat. His mother's face. The feel of her tongue across his forehead. No one had touched him since. By noon, Bruno had traveled only a few hundred feet. His body trembled with fever. Flies buzzed around the open wound on his leg. He wanted to stop, to curl up, to sleep. But every time he closed his eyes, he saw a light. Not a light in the sky or from a building. Something deeper. A feeling. He couldn't name it, but it was love. It was rescue, and it was out there, waiting. He dragged himself past a hollow log, then a rusted mailbox with no house nearby. His head drooped low, too heavy to lift. The sun beat down now, unforgiving, drying the blood on his leg into dark scabs. The gravel beneath him burned his skin, but he kept moving. Somewhere ahead, a leaf fluttered. A butterfly landed near his nose. He watched it with dazed eyes, then stretched his front paw forward and crawled again. Late afternoon cast long shadows on the road. Bruno's journey was now marked behind him, a trail of paw prints, smears of red, tiny tufts of fur. A silent testimony to his courage. And still no one came. As twilight approached, the wind picked up. Cool and gentle, it ruffled his fur and offered a brief comfort. He reached a ditch beside the road and tumbled into it, rolling awkwardly and landing in a patch of soft grass. He cried out in pain, but there was no one to hear him. He lay there panting, exhausted beyond words. For a long while he didn't move. The stars began to prick the sky above. The moon crested the hill, silver and beautiful. Bruno's eyes fluttered open. He was cold, so cold, but he wasn't gone. Not yet. Something in him stirred again. Maybe it was the moonlight. Maybe it was the scent of food on the breeze. Or maybe, just maybe, it was fate. He lifted his paw again and crawled out of the ditch. The road ahead remained endless, dark and quiet. But Bruno was still breathing, still fighting. He wouldn't stop. Not until he found what he had come for. Not until someone saw him. The night crept over the countryside like a heavy quilt, its cold fingers settling into the crevices of the broken road and whispering through the dry grass. Crickets began their rhythmic chorus while owls hooted from distant trees announcing the reign of night. But amidst the peaceful song of nature, a silent battle raged, one of life and willpower against fatigue and agony. Bruno, the tiny puppy, now lay in a roadside ditch, shivering. His broken leg was swollen, crusted with dried blood and grime. His breathing was shallow, but steady. Every exhale produced a faint wheeze, each breath a small miracle. His little body had reached a point where pain and numbness blurred together, one long stretch of ache. But Bruno's heart, impossibly, had not given up. From where he lay, Bruno could see the faint flicker of a light far in the distance, distant headlights bouncing over a hill. It was faint, but unmistakable. A car, a soul, a chance, hope. He whimpered softly, as if his voice could carry across the void and summon it closer. He waited, unsure if the vehicle would pass by like the last one. He feared that his body might fail before it ever arrived. But still, he believed. He always had. Maybe because his mother once taught him that love was real. Or maybe because even in the dark, his soul could sense it. Human kindness. The headlights grew larger, closer, then slowed. The hum of the engine softened and the car came to a full stop by the roadside ditch. A door creaked open and footsteps crunched against gravel. A flashlight flicked on, its beam sweeping over the ditch and illuminating the frail form of Bruno. "Oh my God." A woman's voice gasped. Her name was Emily. She was a local school teacher heading home after an evening at her sister's. She hadn't expected to take the longer scenic road that night, but something had told her to. She didn't know why. Not then. When her headlights had caught something oddly shaped in the ditch, small and unmoving, she had braked on instinct. Now, as the beam of her flashlight landed on the trembling, dirt-covered puppy, her heart cracked open like never before. "Oh, baby," she whispered, crouching down slowly. "You poor, poor thing." Bruno barely lifted his head. His body was too broken, but his tail moved, just once. A weak thump against the ground. That small gesture shattered Emily's composure. Tears welled in her eyes as she took off her coat and gently wrapped the puppy in it. "I've got you now. You're safe. I promise." Her voice was soft, quivering with emotion. Bruno nestled into her arms as best he could, letting out a faint sigh as if surrendering his pain to her warmth. His little heart thudded weakly against her chest. Emily carried him to her car with both hands, shielding his broken leg and whispering, "Comfort." She placed him gently in the passenger seat, laying him atop her scarf and coat, then turned the heater on full blast. The car roared to life, and they sped toward the nearest emergency vet clinic, 20 miles away. In the passenger seat, Bruno's eyes flickered open every now and then, focusing on her face, her hands, the road ahead. The ride felt surreal. The world was finally moving for him. After miles of dragging himself across silence, now it all sped by in a blur. Emily spoke softly as she drove. "You're such a brave boy. I can't believe you made it this far. Who left you out there? Huh? Who gave up on you?" She wasn't expecting an answer, of course, but her words filled the space, wrapping the little pup in human presence, in sound, in love. Her fingers brushed his head gently when they stopped at red lights. She kept checking the rearview mirror to make sure he was still breathing. When they finally pulled into the vet clinic's parking lot, the bright white letters on the building, glowing like a beacon in the night, Emily leapt from the car and cradled Bruno close to her chest. The glass door swung open before her, the receptionist already on the phone calling the vet to the front. "He's bleeding, and his legs... I think it's broken," Emily cried, breathless and near panic. "He was on the side of the road, all alone, I don't even know how long." The receptionist nodded quickly, understanding the urgency. Within seconds, a vet tech had whisked Bruno away toward the treatment room, while Emily stood at the counter, hugging her arms to her chest, praying silently for the tiny soul she had found by what now felt like fate. Behind closed doors, the veterinary team worked quickly. The vet, Dr. Reyes, was a woman of calm but serious demeanor. She had seen her share of strays and rescues, but there was something different about this one. "He's severely dehydrated," she murmured, listening to his heart. "Malnourished. His leg is indeed broken. Compound fracture. Infection is starting." The team cleaned his wound carefully, giving him pain medication and fluids intravenously. His body, weak as it was, responded slowly. But it responded. "He's a fighter," one vet tech whispered as Bruno stirred on the treatment table. "He's made it this far. He's not giving up." Back in the waiting room, Emily sat gripping a warm cup of coffee the receptionist had brought her, her eyes never leaving the hallway that led to the exam rooms. Every second ticked by like an hour. Her mind replayed the image of Bruno crawling along the road, dragging himself through dirt and pain just to survive. She had a dog once, years ago, a golden retriever named Max. He had been her shadow, her best friend, the one who licked her tears away during breakups and danced with her in the kitchen while she cooked. He had passed from cancer 5 years ago. Since then, she hadn't let herself love another dog. Until tonight, when Dr. Reyes finally returned to the lobby, her face bore cautious hope. "He's stable for now," she said gently. "But he has a long road ahead. Surgery for the leg, antibiotics, and careful nursing." Emily nodded, eyes glassy. "I'll cover it, whatever it takes. Just save him." The vet looked at her, seeing something in her face, a quiet resolve. "Are you sure? This won't be easy." Emily stood. "He crawled miles with a broken leg just to survive. He didn't give up, and neither will I." At that moment, in a small metal kennel in the back of the clinic, wrapped in clean bandages and warm blankets, Bruno let out a small, almost imperceptible sigh. For the first time in his short, brutal life, he didn't feel pain. He felt safe. He felt warmth. And though he didn't understand the words, his heart understood something far more powerful. He had found help. He had found her. The sterile scent of antiseptic lingered in the air like a quiet reminder of pain and recovery. Bruno lay motionless on a soft fleece blanket inside a stainless steel kennel at the veterinary clinic, his body still fragile, but wrapped in layers of warmth and care. His small leg was splinted and bandaged in pristine white gauze, a faint contrast to the once dried blood that had matted his fur the night before. The IV line delivered steady drops of life-saving fluid, the gentle hiss of machines monitoring his vitals, offering a strange, steady comfort in the quiet. It was morning now. Soft light streamed in through the frosted windows, casting dappled golden rays across the floor. The vet techs began their rounds early, whispering and stepping lightly, not to disturb the more critical patients. Bruno, tiny and weak, remained one of them. Emily arrived at the clinic as soon as the doors opened. She hadn't really slept. After leaving the clinic just after midnight, she'd sat in her car for an hour, just staring through the windshield, processing the weight of everything. The pain she had seen in Bruno's eyes, the way he'd wagged his tail despite being broken, the way he'd surrendered into her arms like she was the only safe thing he'd ever known. She had gone home and set up a small corner in her living room with blankets and a crate, though she didn't know when Bruno would be able to come home, if he even survived. Now, as she walked into the clinic again, her heart was clenched with fear but carried on the wings of something deeper. Commitment. She had found him, and she wouldn't abandon him. Dr. Reyes greeted her in the hallway. "He made it through the night," she said gently. "That's a big step." Tears pricked Emily's eyes. "Can I see him?" The vet led her down the hallway and paused in front of Bruno's kennel. Inside, the puppy lay on his side, eyes closed. His chest rose and fell with a soft rhythm, and the swelling around his legs seemed slightly reduced. When Emily knelt beside the kennel and called his name gently, Bruno's eyes fluttered open. It took a moment for recognition to set in, but when it did, when he realized it was her, his tail moved again, ever so faintly, thumping once against the soft blanket. That was all it took to make Emily weep. "Oh, sweet boy," she whispered, slipping her fingers through the bars to touch his head. His fur was softer now, cleaned and brushed out by the techs. "You're so strong. You're doing so good." She sat with him for nearly an hour, humming softly, whispering stories of the future she imagined for him. A backyard with soft grass, toys strewn about, sunshine warming his belly, and a life where he'd never be left behind again. Over the next several days, Bruno became a permanent fixture in the clinic's quiet recovery ward. The staff, though used to heartbreak and miracles in equal measure, grew particularly attached to the little fighter. He would lift his head to greet them now, offer the tiniest of licks, and when Emily arrived each morning like clockwork, he wagged his tail more enthusiastically. His surgery was scheduled for Friday. The break had been severe and the bones needed realignment with pins and plates. It wasn't a guaranteed success, especially with how small he was and how much stress his body had already endured. But Dr. Reyes was determined to try. The night before the procedure, Emily stayed late at the clinic. She curled up in a chair, beside his kennel, wrapped in a blanket, reading a book aloud even though Bruno drifted in and out of sleep. "You're going to be okay," she whispered at one point, running her fingers gently along the side of his face. "You made it this far, brave boy. You dragged yourself through dirt and pain and fear. You found me, and I'm never letting go." She meant it with every fiber of her being. By morning, Bruno was prepped for surgery. The entire clinic staff had rallied for him. It wasn't just a procedure now, it was personal. Dr. Reyes led the team, her brow furrowed with focus as the hours passed in the sterile operating room. Outside, Emily waited. She paced the hallway, her hands clenched into fists, her mind replaying every detail of the day she found him. The ditch, the light, the way he'd wagged his tail despite the pain, the way he'd let her wrap him in her coat like he was made of glass. After nearly 3 hours, Dr. Reyes emerged, removing her gloves and mask. Emily rushed to her. "How is he?" "He made it," Dr. Reyes said with a tired but genuine smile. "It went better than we hoped. The fracture was tricky, but we were able to stabilize it. It'll take time, but he's going to walk again." Emily broke down, right there in the hallway. Tears streamed down her face, her knees buckling slightly. Relief surged through her like electricity. The weight she'd been carrying since that night lifted. Bruno was going to live. Her little miracle was going to walk again. She was allowed to sit with him once he was moved to recovery. He was groggy, barely awake, but when he heard her voice, his ear twitched, and he let out a tiny whine. Emily leaned in close. "I'm here. I always will be." From that day forward, recovery became their shared mission. Emily took leave from her school for 2 weeks and turned her home into a healing sanctuary. When Bruno was discharged, he came home not as a patient, but as family. She set up ramps so he didn't have to climb, padded floors to protect his leg, and made warm meals laced with medicine and love. Every day brought progress. He went from barely standing to taking small, clumsy steps. Each time his paw touched the ground, Emily clapped and cheered like he had just won a gold medal. And each time, Bruno's tail wagged a little more. The neighbors noticed too. Children would stop by the fence to wave at him. Mail carriers paused to give him treats. He became the symbol of something bigger than recovery. He was the story of survival, grit, and love that everyone needed. He was the puppy who had dragged himself through pain just to find someone to love him. And now, he was the puppy who ran, limped, still but free, across the backyard grass with his ears flopping and his heart full. He had once dragged his broken body to find help. Now he danced on the same legs once shattered, because love met him halfway. The scent of fresh morning dew wafted in through the open window as sunlight poured into the modest living room, where Bruno now slept peacefully in a soft dog bed Emily had hand-sewn from old flannel shirts. The once scrawny, broken puppy was still small, still healing, but now his coat shimmered with health and his eyes gleamed with a new kind of light. Hope. It had been 3 weeks since his surgery, and each day had brought subtle but significant changes. His movements were still cautious, his steps measured, but the limp that had once looked painful now appeared more like a unique rhythm. Bruno's special walk, a badge of survival. He had transformed from a fragile shell into a real pup, full of quirks and personality. Mornings were his favorite. Emily would make tea and sit by the window while Bruno wobbled up beside her, nudging her arm until she petted him. He loved these quiet hours, the soft touch of her fingers behind his ears, the warmth of her smile. He had come to associate her voice with comfort, her scent with safety. He followed her like a shadow, never too far behind, as though afraid she might disappear like everyone else before. But Emily wasn't going anywhere. Her bond with Bruno had only deepened. At night, when he had night terrors, whimpering and twitching as his mind revisited the trauma, she would scoop him up in her arms and hum lullabies until he settled. And during the day, when he grew brave enough to attempt stairs or chase a soft toy, she would cheer him on like a mother watching her baby take their first steps. One Saturday morning, a knock at the door stirred Bruno from his bed. His ears perked up, and he let out a tiny, unsure bark. Emily chuckled, scooping him up in her arms. "Big guard dog energy," she teased. At the door stood Marlene, the vet tech from the clinic who had first bathed Bruno after his rescue. She held a small wrapped package and a gentle smile. "I was just in the area and thought I'd drop this off," Marlene said. She handed the gift to Emily, who opened it to find a framed photo of Bruno the day he left the clinic, wrapped in a soft blanket, peeking out with cautious eyes. Below the photo, a quote had been inscribed: "Sometimes the smallest steps lead to the biggest miracles." Emily's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you. He's come so far." Marlene stepped inside, kneeling beside Bruno, who sniffed her hand, and then gave her a timid lick. "Hey there, miracle boy," she said. "Still fighting, huh?" Bruno wagged his tail, slow but steady. The two women talked for hours, recalling the night he came in, the surgery, the recovery. But more than anything, they talked about what was next. Emily confessed her dreams for Bruno, enrolling him in therapy dog training, bringing him to visit children at the hospital where her sister worked. She wanted his story to mean something. "I think," Emily said softly, "he's meant to show people what love can do." As days turned into weeks, Bruno's confidence blossomed. He started exploring the backyard more boldly, digging tiny holes under the tree roots and barking at butterflies. He no longer flinched when someone reached for him. He had learned that hands could mean belly rubs and toys, not pain. Emily documented every step. She began sharing Bruno's journey online, posting daily updates on a blog titled Bruno's Road. Her post went viral. People were moved by the story of the tiny puppy who had dragged himself for miles with a broken leg just to find help. The comments section overflowed with love, encouragement, and even donations from strangers offering to pay for future vet care or send toys. One letter stood out. It came from a little boy named Leo, who had lost his own dog in a car accident. He wrote, "Dear Bruno, you are brave like a superhero. When I am sad, I look at your pictures and feel better. I hope one day I can meet you." Emily read it aloud and cried. "I think you're helping heal hearts already, Bruno," she whispered. They arranged a visit to the children's hospital that month. Bruno had passed basic temperament evaluations and was cleared for short visits. The staff welcomed him like a celebrity. Children with tubes and bandages lined up, eyes wide with wonder, as the little pup limped down the hallway wearing a vest that read, "Tiny Hero." He stopped beside Leo's bed. The boy reached out gently. Bruno, without hesitation, nestled his head into Leo's hand. The room fell into hushed silence. Leo's mother started crying. The doctors watched in awe. "Knew he was real," Leo whispered. "He found me." In that moment, Emily understood what she had only dreamed of before. Bruno's pain hadn't been in vain. His journey, every inch dragged over broken terrain, every whimper through the night, had led him here, to this bed, to this child who needed hope. Bruno stayed curled beside Leo for an hour, unmoving as if understanding how sacred the moment was. From that day forward, Bruno became more than just a survivor. He became a symbol, a reminder that love could pull you out of the darkest ditch, that even the smallest creature with a crushed leg and no voice could change lives. As Emily tucked him into bed that night, she whispered, "You were born for something bigger, sweet boy, and you're just getting started." Bruno blinked, up at her, eyes heavy with sleep, but heart light with peace. His body still bore the scars. His limp would likely never go away. But in those imperfections was something beautiful, proof of what he had overcome, a badge of courage, a lesson in resilience. And in his new life, in this quiet little home with Emily by his side, he would never be alone again. Bruno sat by the window, his eyes scanning the horizon as the sun dipped low, casting golden rays across the living room floor. His posture had changed over the months. He no longer hunched in fear or flinched at sudden noises. His body, once broken and curled defensively, now carried pride in its small frame. He was still the same dog who had dragged himself for miles, paw by paw, but now he had something he never imagined he'd find: peace, love, and a purpose. Emily walked in, holding a collar in one hand and a folded vest in the other. Bruno's tail thumped softly against the cushion. It was time. Today they would return to the hospital. Not just to visit, but to be honored. The hospital had organized a special ceremony for Bruno. Word had spread far beyond their small town. Bruno's story had touched people from every walk of life: soldiers who had lost limbs, children battling illnesses, even elderly folks who had lost their own pets long ago. To them, Bruno wasn't just a puppy. He was a beacon of hope, a tiny symbol of everything good and resilient in the world. Emily knelt in front of him and fastened the collar gently. "Ready, hero?" Bruno licked her hand in response, his eyes bright. They had done this enough times now for him to recognize the routine, the car ride, the hallway, the eager faces. But today felt different, bigger. The drive was silent except for the soft hum of the radio and the occasional squeak of Bruno's paw as he adjusted himself in the passenger seat. Emily kept stealing glances at him, marveling at how far he had come. She remembered the first night she held him, his eyes sunken, his body cold. Now he sat upright, alert, the scar on his leg a mere shadow of the pain he had endured. As they pulled into the hospital parking lot, a small crowd had already gathered outside. Children with signs that read, "We love Bruno," nurses holding balloons, and a few elderly patients bundled in blankets waved from their wheelchairs. When Emily opened the car door, the applause started. Bruno, unsure at first, looked up at Emily. She nodded and whispered, "Go on, baby. They're here for you." He stepped out, his limp still there but now part of his identity. He walked proudly, vest strapped snugly to his body. "Tiny hero," the bold letters declared. The children rushed forward but stopped short, remembering the rules. One by one they knelt to his level, letting him come to them. He made his way down the line, accepting soft pats, licks on cheeks, and even a giggle when a toddler tried to share his lollipop. Then came Leo. The boy had grown stronger over the weeks. The hospital reported he was doing better, eating more, smiling more, and they credited Bruno. "Hi again," Leo said, holding out a drawing, a crayon picture of Bruno flying through the air with a cape. Bruno climbed into his lap, nuzzling his face. Leo hugged him tightly. "I missed you." The ceremony began shortly after. A hospital administrator stepped up to a small podium, microphone in hand. "We gathered today to honor not just a pet, but a soul who showed the world what courage truly looks like." Bruno didn't choose his pain, but he chose to keep going. He chose love. And in doing so, he reminded us all that even the smallest heart can carry the biggest strength. Emily stood behind the crowd, hand over her mouth, tears glistening in her eyes. They called her forward, presented her with a plaque engraved with both her and Bruno's names, and thanked her for believing in a dog that the world had once abandoned. After the event, as the crowd thinned and the children returned to their rooms, Emily and Bruno walked slowly through the hospital gardens. The path was lined with cherry blossoms in full bloom, petals drifting like snow around them. Bruno sniffed the air, then sat by a bench, his favorite spot. Emily joined him, sitting cross-legged. "You know," she said softly, "you changed everything." Bruno leaned into her, resting his head on her lap. "I used to think I saved you," she continued. "But the truth is, you saved me. You reminded me how to feel again, how to fight for something. You gave me purpose." For a long time, neither moved. They just sat there, the quiet hum of spring around them, the occasional chirp of a bird. Eventually, Bruno stirred. He looked up at her and she saw it in his eyes. That unmistakable light, the one that never dimmed, even when his body was at its weakest. Back home that evening, Emily opened her laptop and uploaded a new blog post. The title read, "Bruno's Final Step, From the Ditch to the Stars." She included photos from the ceremony, the drawing from Leo, and a video clip of Bruno limping proudly across the hospital courtyard. And at the end of the post, she wrote, "We often overlook the smallest among us. We pass by pain, tell ourselves it's not our burden. But Bruno taught me that every life matters, that even a tiny puppy in the darkest ditch deserves a chance. He didn't give up, and because of that, neither will I. If you ever see someone hurting, someone small and struggling, be their Emily, be their hope." The post went viral within hours. Comments poured in. "I've never cried this hard. Thank you, Bruno. This gave me the courage to foster again. My son has cancer. He asked if we could read Bruno's story every night." Emily watched the screen through tears. Bruno curled at her feet. That night, as the stars lit up the sky outside their window, Bruno climbed onto the couch beside Emily, sighing deeply. She kissed his head, then whispered, "Sleep, hero. You've earned it." And somewhere in the vast network of hearts he'd touched, others did the same, holding their own pets a little tighter, walking with a little more compassion, and remembering that love, no matter how small, can change the world. If this brave little puppy's journey touched your heart, please show your support by liking this video. His strength, pain, and unwavering will to survive deserve to be seen and remembered. Comment below and share your thoughts. Every voice matters. Don't forget to share this story with someone who believes in hope and second chances. And most importantly, subscribe to our channel for more real stories that honor the loyalty and love of dogs like him. Your support helps keep these stories alive, because sometimes one small paw print can leave the biggest mark on our hearts.